There is new information from U.S. intelligence indicating that the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, could try to test NATO's unity with a limited attack against a NATO ally. The assessments warn that Russia could carry out a small-scale incursion or a cyber attack with the aim of testing NATO's commitment.
U.S. intelligence has issued the most serious warning since the beginning of the war in Ukraine. According to the American newspaper Wall Street Journal, the United States government warned its allies Russia may attack a NATO country, and it's not years away. Everything indicates that this could happen in the coming months. And here's something interesting. Until the beginning of this year, the Americans' assessment of this was exactly the opposite. For them, Putin would never attack the alliance while he was bogged down in Ukraine. But that assessment changed, and it didn't change for no reason. In recent weeks, 3 incidents happened in 3 different NATO countries. They were 3 incidents that separately seem like coincidence. Together, they tell a different story. American intelligence saw something that many hadn't noticed, and that was enough to put all NATO members on alert. Let's start with the first incident. Poland, July 30th, 3:15 in the morning. A security camera in front of a house in the countryside records an ordinary early morning. Then this happens. Take a look at that flash. That's a Russian cruise missile exploding on Polish soil, NATO soil. The missile flew about 90 kilometers into the country and created a 10-meter crater in a field near the city of Lublin. The Polish air defense detected the object, and an F-16 fighter jet took off to intercept it. But then the object disappeared from the radar. A helicopter found the impact site the next morning. And the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, said a phrase that I want you to remember. He said, "We were prepared to shoot down the missile if it had continued its flight." Yes. NATO came within minutes of neutralizing a Russian missile within its own airspace. 2 days later, the official confirmation came. Listen to what the Polish Deputy Minister of Defense, Cezary Tomczyk, said at this press conference. It was a Russian missile, Kh-101, a cruise missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. And there's more. According to the Polish government, the missile was manufactured this year, in 2026. It came off the production line straight into NATO territory. The Polish Foreign Minister, Radosław Sikorski, even made a point of publishing it. Missiles like this are used exclusively by Russia's strategic aviation. In other words, there's no other possible version of this story. That night, according to the Polish government, Russia launched about 70 missiles against Ukraine, and about 20 flew toward the Polish border. Ukraine's defenses shot down most of them. The Ukrainians let one of them through on purpose, because intercepting it could have sent the debris into Poland. And the deputy minister did not rule out that the missiles may have been intentionally directed toward the Polish side. Now pay attention to this detail, because almost no news outlet reported it. Hours before the missile fell, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, was meeting with Tusk in Lublin itself, the same region where the missile fell. Could it be a coincidence? Look, it could be. But in geopolitics, a geographic coincidence with that kind of precision is usually something else. I would say it's a message. And here's another important detail. In September of last year, when 20 Russian drones entered Poland, the Polish government invoked Article 4 of NATO, the alliance's emergency consultation mechanism. They sat down to talk with their allies. Now, after a far more serious missile incident, the response was much quieter. And do you know what that means? In practice, every quiet response like this teaches something. And if you think Poland was an isolated case, look at the case of Romania, which we recently covered in another video. They had to scramble fighter jets 3 days in a row with authorization to shoot down the targets. And that brings us to incident number 2. Before the Polish episode, at the end of May, a Russian drone loaded with explosives crossed the border and hit the roof of a 10-story residential building in the city of Galati in eastern Romania. Look at this footage that a resident filmed from the window of the neighboring building. That flash is an apartment on fire inside a NATO country. A mother and her teenage son needed medical attention. It was the first time in the entire war that a drone hit the residential area of a country in the alliance. The Romanian defense minister identified the drone. A Duran 2, the Russian version of the Iranian Shahed. And the Romanian foreign minister revealed that 2 fighter jets and a helicopter took off that night with authorization to shoot down the target. The Romanian side responded harshly. The country's president expelled the Russian consul and ordered the closure of the Russian consulate in the city of Constantine. The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said that Russia had crossed yet another line. A week later, a maritime drone of the type used in the war self-detonated right in the port of Constanta, near an oil terminal. And at the end of July, Romania shot down 3 drones in 3 days, with at least one of them confirmed as a Russian Shahed. After that, the Russian ambassador was summoned to give explanations. News outlets reported on these incidents. But what no one explained is why this is so important to Russia. Think about it. Every drone that enters forces Romania to activate radars, scramble fighter jets, reveal response times, and rules of engagement. In other words, when the pilots can or cannot act, it's free espionage. And there's also the financial cost. A drone like that costs tens of thousands of dollars. The missile that shoots it down can cost over $1 million. With each interception, the alliance spends a fortune to destroy junk. Russia is doing this math and testing how long patience and supplies last. Now, with drones at the border, many might say these are just the spillovers from a neighboring war. But then, how do you explain a drone with military explosives showing up more than 1,000 kilometers from the front line inside a German airport? And then we get to incident number 3, August 5th at the airport in the city of Leipzig, Germany. A modified drone carrying explosives and a detonator is found on the runway, right next to a Ukrainian cargo plane. According to the press, the likely target was exactly this plane, which was carrying ammunition. A second drone even collided with a DHL plane. The explosive was neutralized in a controlled detonation. And this place is not just any airport. Leipzig has been home to the Ukrainian airline Antonov since 2022 and hosts NATO's strategic transport operations, which supplies the eastern flank almost every day, the alliance's border with Russia and Ukraine. In 2024, an incendiary package had already caught fire at a logistics center there, in a scheme that Western authorities attributed to Russian agents. Now, listen to what the German Interior Minister, Alexander Dobrindt, said at a press conference at the airport itself. He doesn't accuse anyone. He asked for calm. He says the speculations might be wrong. He ends with a phrase that sums it up, and it sums up everything. It's part of the nature of a hybrid threat. It's not always clear where it comes from. That's exactly the gray area where this kind of operation was designed to exist. But according to the Wall Street Journal, American officials went beyond all that German caution. They said it was Semtex explosive for military use, and the operation was linked to Russian intelligence. And do you know how the Russian embassy in Germany responded? They called it a new wave of anti-Russian hysteria. And this was said on the same day that drones flew over a German military base where personnel working on the maintenance of Patriot systems are stationed. Now there was another case where many are pointing the finger at the Russians. This past Saturday, a drone exploded in Bulgaria, just 1 kilometer from a Trans-Balkan pipeline station, the gas line that connects Turkey to Ukraine. See what the Prime Minister, the Bulgarian minister, after the emergency meeting said. He doesn't accuse anyone. He says that neither the nor the NATO Air Operations Center in Spain had any data about that drone. But regardless of whether it's Russian or not, one thing became very clear. Russia's war has scattered a large number of stray ordnance across Europe. And this has already made Bulgaria take action. The country announced that it will redeploy forces from the border with Turkey to the border with Romania. Yes, NATO country moving troops because of drones. Okay, we've already seen a missile in Poland, drones in Romania, sabotage in Germany. Now comes the question that connects the dots. What did American intelligence see that others didn't? And before I answer you, do the following. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, because this story is going to escalate in the next few months, and you'll want to follow every chapter here. According to the Wall Street Journal, new reports from American intelligence say that Putin may test NATO with a limited attack starting in the next few months, between September of this year and 2029. And there are many scenarios listed. Cyber attack, sabotage, and something that deserves your special attention: the deployment of unidentified armed groups to occupy the territory of an allied country. Does that remind you of anything? Crimea 2014. Soldiers without insignia, the famous little green men, occupy buildings while Russia swears it has nothing to do with it. The head of Poland's foreign intelligence admitted in an interview that this exact scenario, little green men in a Baltic country, is on their radar. The most extreme scenario in these reports, which would be a limited ground incursion on the eastern flank, is still considered unlikely. But the likelihood is increasing more and more. And the most likely targets are Poland and the 3 Baltic countries: Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. The Baltics, in fact, are already feeling this firsthand. In May, the Prime Minister of Lithuania was taken to an underground bunker while NATO fighter jets intercepted a drone flying toward the country's capital. And last week, the Lithuanian defense minister said the most direct statement of all. The Kremlin, that is, the Russian government, needs a new escalation, a new victory, and the Baltics and Poland are the closest targets. He also warned that Russia is preparing false flag operations against the Baltic countries. In other words, stage attacks to put the blame on another country using drones manufactured in that country. In my view, everything indicates that Putin's target is not a piece of Polish or Baltic territory. The target is a phrase,
NATO's Article 5.
the promise that an attack against one is an attack against all. That promise is what has held Russia back for almost 80 years. And a promise like that is only worth something as long as no one can prove it's empty. Remember the phrase? From Tusk? Back at the beginning, we were ready to take down. It's exactly that split second between detecting and acting that Putin is measuring. Every missile that falls and only gets a note of protest, every drone that comes and goes without consequence, is another data point in his calculation. Unable to achieve victory in Ukraine and under pressure at home, a cheap test like this against NATO could give Putin what the battlefield hasn't delivered so far. It's proof that NATO hesitates. And there's another uncomfortable detail behind this whole picture, revealed in the same report. The American reports themselves admit that the United States stockpiles of critical munitions, precision missiles, tactical systems are depleted due to support for Ukraine. And because of the conflict with Iran,
Putin reads these numbers too.
So, there are 3 signs we should watch for from now on. The first is new incidents in Poland or the Baltic countries between September and the end of the year. Well, the time frame set by American intelligence. The second would be NATO's reaction to the next incident. Will it be an interception or just a note of protest? That response, as you've seen so far, is worth more than any speech. And finally, Russian military activity near the eastern flank. It could be military exercises, repositioning, anything out of the ordinary. If these signs appear, the scenario from the report starts to become reality. And we'll be here following everything to keep you informed. So subscribe to the channel and leave a like so the video can reach more people. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.